Welcome to True Health Tuesday, and the truth will set you free. Genetic and genetic expression, okay, and this is hugely important in today. But also, I mean, the questions that you ask literally equate to the quality of your life. Now, are you designed to live here?
Yep.
Really?
Yes.
Really? What type of things do you need? You're going to need some kind of shelter, okay, because you're human, but luckily you have hands that work and a brain that works and 1,000 generations before you. Do you need anything to protect yourself from the sun? Yeah, perhaps a hat, maybe something from the environment. Can you get all the food that your body requires from the planet?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so 1,000 generations you've been designed to live here. Excellent, I like that. That's kind of cool. What we're going to look at is adaptive physiology and disease. Is high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, dementia, depression, cancer, autism, are these diseases, are they adaptations to a toxic and deficient environment? You know, it's interesting when you think about it, because now when we're talking about genetic and genetic expression, it has to do with environmental stimulus. So do you have any physical, chemical, or emotional stress? If you do, that's going to alter how you express your genes. So what are you afraid of? Now you can say, well, fear is false expectations appearing real, but are you afraid of an infection? I don't know. You know, how big is it? How big of a fear do you have? Like I had there was a couple of years ago that Ebola was a big crisis in Africa, and I had an Orange County housewife to say, how do I protect my kids from Ebola? And I said, well, have them, if they go to Africa, particularly this Congo region, you know, make sure they take lots of vitamin D and vitamin C and they'll be okay. Okay, now are you afraid of contact tracing? Maybe you like that security, that anybody that you're in contact with, that the government, don't worry, the government will take care of you. They'll follow them and keep them in quarantine for as long as they feel necessary. Are you worried about the virus or economic collapse? Knowing that viruses mutate every year, okay, that's why they got to come up with a new flu shot every year, and that doesn't work that well. Are you worried about government control, big pharma, vaccines, end of the species, global warming, destruction of the United States? Yeah, destruction of the United States. We had a thing, and I know, you know, 200 and something years ago when the founders built the Bill of Rights and our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, all those documents that we used to hold dear, they misrepresented the Bill of Rights. Rights are something that you can't have taken away. Okay, that they're unalienable, that everybody had the pursuit, the rights to pursue happiness, liberty, I mean, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. They were inalienable. I now know it was the Bill of Privileges, because those can't be taken away. So what's your philosophy? Because your philosophy is hugely dependent on gene and gene expression. I know that sounds weird. But if you're in a stressed state and your philosophy is in a stressed state, you're going to express genes that can literally cause a disease. If you're in a relaxed state, you can express genes that reverse disease. So it really depends on your philosophy. Like, let's say, if you're concerned about infectious disease, what level? You know, I'm about a level 1. You know, so I do enough stuff during the day where I eat right, sleep right, exercise, and I know my genetic makeup. I have absolutely no fear of a common cold, flu disease, Ebola, or anything like that. And if I do get a cold, okay, I know I've had colds before. I've survived. I know this seems crazy to you, but over half a century I've been alive. In fact, 60 years. You didn't know people could live that long, did you? So what level do you have confidence in your immune system? Now, these are all health philosophy questions. Why? Because I'm seeing people in this abject fear. Okay, and I mean not just a little afraid. I mean deadly fear. And it's a trip too, because when all you can do is just see their eyes, you get this fear. And you know, granted, you can still see my mouth, and this is my mask, okay? And I will use it. And why? Because it does, you know, cause protection. It's, you know, good against arrows, just like chainmail. Okay, now, how important is your nutrition? Do you think it doesn't matter that we can go to McDonald's or, you know, Chick-fil-A or something? How do you feel about medications? Do you think that diet change can actually reverse disease? Or do you think that your doctor is all-seeing, all-knowing, and that every time he prescribes a medication, it's based in science, and that you should listen to him? How important is your psychological health? Do you think that that's actually a factor? Or you can be completely stressed out by watching CNN every night and then be totally okay with your immune system? Do you feel that social interaction is integral to your health? Like, do you think you want to be around people? Okay, I would think that. I mean, because we're social beings, and nobody can live by themselves isolated. They're going to need some type of connection. Now, I'm looking at this, and there's events around the world. Now, we are in the Empire of California. It's no longer part of the United States. It's run by Emperor Newsom. And he's deciding to close businesses, open businesses, which he really doesn't have authority to do, but no one's really questioning that. You know, there's several lawsuits going against him, and he's saying, no, we're in an emergency. You can't even question my authority. Okay, well, Texas, London, Toronto, and Florida, there's multiple demonstrations of people protesting against masks, okay? And they feel that it's not necessary and that they have a different philosophy. So what I'm asking, if you're wearing a mask, what will give you the assurance to take that sucker off? What kind of security do you need? Do you need to have somebody, you know, a governmental authority to say, you can now remove your mask? You are okay, and you may hug people. Okay, and you know, people are going to say, wow, cool, thank God, that was a pain in the ass. Okay, and as soon as you tell me, I'll put that sucker right back on. I'll be okay. Okay, are we going to go to sporting events again? Well, it's up to the government, because if they told you to put the sucker on and stay away from people, they can tell you to take it off, and it's okay now. You can go to Angel Stadium and watch the game. Sit next to the cardboard cutout, and the cardboard cutouts actually have masks on them. Have you seen that? Dude, you couldn't make this shit up. Okay, so Kenya, Denmark, this one in Utah County, I mean, it was bizarre. That is a room, I don't know, what do you think? 50, 60, 70 people in that room, small room. They had about 4 or 5 councilmen up there. And the councilman was talking with the chin warmer. Wait, I'm sorry, you probably don't know this, but sometimes masks are worn down here, and I call it a chin warmer. Of course, they grab it and pull it up, but it's down there, you know, a good hunk of the time. So when you're looking at that, he was there, and he said, nobody in this crowd is social distancing. No kidding. They're pissed. They want to stop social distancing. That son of a bitch works for these guys, okay? The government works for us. It's a government by people's consent, by our consent. That's how they govern, okay? And this guy closed the meeting, okay? And these guys left the room intact, okay? If you're at a council meeting and those guys work for you and they close it, we take the room over and fire them. This one in Australia was amazing. This guy had the effrontery to exercise in a park without a mask with his girlfriend. For shame. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 mounted patrolmen, and this cop has his hands behind his back. He takes a mask, puts it over the guy, and puts the mask on the face himself. Now, granted, Australia was populated by a different group of people back in, you know, 1700s, you know, that are used to following rules, and, you know, so they're going to have certain things like that going on. Germany, some people say 20,000, some people say 30,000 people got together. Yes, I know there's no social distancing and there was no massive increase of any virus. And they're saying masks make us slaves. But our empire of California, we are following very well. World Health Organization says there's no specific evidence to suggest that wearing masks by mass population has any benefit, any potential benefit. In fact, there's some evidence to suggest that the opposite, misuse of wearing a mask improperly or fitting it improperly, can be a problem. Now, this was the World Health Organization about March. Now, did masks change? No. Did people change? No. Did the virus change? No. Okay, they just decided to change. Okay, and why? Because there's no data to support it anyway. British Medical Journal says it can be dangerous. Inappropriate use of face masks. People can't touch their mask. So this means you can only touch the ears. You're going to wash your hands in between each time. And if you're adjusting it when you're standing there, that's not good. That can contaminate it. We know that multiple studies show that no virus is on the inside, but a huge amount on the outside, because every time you keep touching it, you can keep moving it and keep adjusting it. I've had several patients with contact dermatitis that say, gee, doc, what can I do? Okay, expose that skin to air and sun, and you'll be okay. It turns out that you're rebreathing carbon dioxide. This can weaken your immune system, according to the British Medical Journal. So now, again, you got to think, okay, what's your philosophy? What's your philosophy? If we're going to express our genes or suppress our genes based on the environment, what are the leading causes? What's killing us? If you're actually designed to live on this planet, and your species is dying at a great rate, what's killing us? Well, let's look at it. Heart disease, 600,000 people. No, we did not shut down for heart disease. Okay. Cancer, almost 600,000. Accidents, 161,000. Respiratory disease, stroke, Alzheimer's. And these are all the percentage. Now, all of these deaths, in this country, about 2.8 million people die every year. No matter what, okay? You can't keep them alive. So when you get a butthead in New York governor, we're going to destroy everyone's life, but if it just saves one. What? Are you giving eternal life around? Okay, you're not going to save anyone. You may delay a death. Okay, more than likely everyone in this room will die, hopefully not for another half a century. That would be cool. I'd like to live a bit longer. Okay, but you're not going to save a life. You may delay a death. So that's foolishness, but who is dying? I mean, what's the real cause of this? Now, we know that this has an amazing effect on heart attacks. There's a 40% reduction in heart attack deaths in America. So something is working really well, or they're being mislabeled as COVID deaths. Because remember, how they're labeling COVID is, it doesn't matter, like let's say you had a kidney transplant and also had a flu, but you tested positive, you died of COVID. If you were hit by a bus, you died of COVID. If you had tested positive and you were in a motorcycle accident, you died of COVID. So the numbers are skewed, but let's just use the numbers. Particularly the numbers of people who are dying in assisted living centers. And I'm not talking COVID deaths. Okay, we're talking 0.1% of the United States population dies in those homes every year. That's 380,000 people every year are dying because we don't take care of them well. Is that genetic or genetic expression? Are they expressing this sick type of lifestyle because they have chronic physical, chemical, and emotional stress because we're not taking care of them? Is this why Como decided to get infected people in the most infectious area, in the highest risk group ever? And he's considered popular? Good God. I mean, if you look at the statistics, everyone's coming down on Sweden, but you got New York that has over 3 times the amount of deaths per 100,000, and you got New Jersey that has almost 3.5 times that number of deaths as opposed to Sweden. Okay, but no one's talking about that. When we look at this, if you get infected, if you actually get infected, now it's interesting, there's a doctor up north, Dr. Tim O'Shea, that if you know a healthy person that caught this, that died. Okay, remember, no comorbid conditions. All you need is one, you get $5,000. Because he's looking for the one person that was healthy that caught this, that died. Not the person that just had a kidney transplant, not the person that has old chemotherapy last year, or the person that's taken 2 or 3 different medications. Okay, we're talking a healthy person that actually caught it that died. I'd be kind of curious. Because if we compare this to lightning strikes, in 2019, 20 people got hit by lightning. That means from the average death, it's about 0.3 zeros and a 7 from a lightning strike. On the average deaths, 2.8 million. That means that 20-year-olds are about 2.5 times greater risk of dying of COVID than of getting struck by lightning. Okay, so now you might say, well, that's double the risk. Okay, maybe we should be afraid of lightning, or we should be afraid of a disease that affects such a small percentage. Let's look at this. I mean, the CDC, the ones that are running this, is this genetic? Is your species this genetically defective? Think if I said we've got a species, a herd of caribou, a herd of water buffalo, that 60% have a chronic illness or injury, that most of them are dying of heart disease, cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, stroke. This is one of the sickest herds you've ever seen. Do you think it's genetic or genetic expression? Duh! This is insane. So let's look at this. When you have physical, chemical, and emotional stress, your blood gets ready because you're going into battle and it gets thick. And you're looking at a fairly normal red blood cell analysis on the left and a stressed blood cell on the right. Now, we do live blood cell analysis at our clinic. Okay, so we can see this. But think of that. If blood is designed to hold oxygen, get into joints and filter out in there, if your little 3-pound brain burns 20% of the body's oxygen, does that mean stress decreases oxygen to the brain and to the joints? Yes or yes? It's mind-blowing. So deaths from despair. Now, currently we're around 140,000 some people that supposedly have died from COVID, even though the tests are 80% false positives and they're labeling just about anybody with COVID. But let's just use that number. 831,000 are estimated to die from despair. That means increased alcohol, suicide, drug addiction, beatings. I mean, deaths from despair. How would you like to build a business, have it destroyed because you're non-essential? Yes, we are going to change this and take it back so we can have a healthy genetic expression. The United Nations says that hundreds of thousands of children will die. Now, do you realize that schools are opening up around the world? In 7 billion people, there has never been one case of a child transferring or infecting an adult. Not one case. Not 100 cases. Not one case in the world. So does that mean that schools are probably safe to open? Yeah. So what's the psychological effect of our children wearing masks? Remember, no recess, no group lunches, no social interaction, no hugging, no seeing kids play and grab the ball and pull it away from each other. None of this stuff is going to happen this year. What's the psychological effect of that? When we look at this, our children aren't that healthy. 54% have a chronic illness or injury. They have a chronic disease that they will never recover from. Is this genetic or genetic expression? This is genetic expression because you cannot have a genetic epidemic. When you heard of this, one person's going to infect 2, 2 infect 4, because this is going to be drilled into you if you watch CNN, ABC, NBC. Why? Because you got to be afraid of those numbers, except what this doesn't tell you is that it requires 100% susceptibility rate. That you need 100% of the population to be sick enough to get this, to have it develop. So then you have to have absolutely no knowledge of viruses or how the body gets infected or the viral response to it. You got to be completely foolish. And then you got to assume, well, if everyone's getting infected, how about we ask certain questions, like how many died, how many recovered, how many were maimed, how many were injured, how many were protected, How many got over it? Do you know what I mean? The questions aren't being asked. So what is a virus? What is a virus? A virus is a well-organized molecular parasite. It needs host DNA to replicate. So does that mean when we look at this, one person has to get it to another person? That person has to have a weakened immune system because viruses don't grow in healthy tissue. And then that person has to be sick enough to have it utilize their DNA or RNA, depending on the virus. And they have to find another sick person to infect them. And they can only do this 2.3 times because then the virus loses its virility. That's what they call it, the RO factor. And so when 45% of your DNA is viral, wait a second, does that mean you got to be afraid of yourself? Obviously, put a mask on. Okay. No, honestly, wear a mask and gloves in your car. That makes sense. Okay, now this is important. Viruses are responsible for two critical important functions in nature, variation and adaptation. The virus is behind much of what we term evolution. Isn't that interesting? Wait a second. So these viruses, and think about this. This is where science is going to take us. Once we get out of this psychosis of you got a symptom, I'm going to give you a toxic chemical for it. Wait, no, that's medical care. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to give you an Advil. Of course, it'll destroy your joints because it limits proteoglycan production. It's going to probably damage your kidney and increase your risk of heart attack 20%, but it's an Advil. You can get this sucker over the counter. Okay, and that's not a slam on Advil, it's a slam on all non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, but that's our society today. You get a chemical for a symptom. Now, viruses are able to move genetic information between different hosts, but we still do not fully understand how this influences and continue to influence the evolution of our new species. Wait a second, that's incredible. Does that mean that 45% of our DNA is viral? That means that we're designed to transfer these things. This is why communities get together so they can have protection and they're communicating what their environment is so they can thrive and survive here. This is why when our patients have kids, I say, look, man, get that kid naked on mom, naked on dad, and have them just go around. Because what those kids are doing, they're looking to find out, should they fight this bacteria or is it part of mom? Should they fight this virus or is it part of mom or dad? Do you know what I mean? So what weakens the immune system? What weakens your immune system? What causes you to have less genetic expression? Stress, physical, chemical, emotional stress, all medications, nutrient deficiencies, sedentary lifestyle, lack of sleep. Hell, that sounds like our assisted living centers, doesn't it? The most medicated population on the planet, the sickest population on the planet, and the ones that are most affected by COVID. And in fact, if you're looking at 92% of all cases are 55 and older. If you look at 70% of all deaths are over 70. And they're sick. You're talking 98% had comorbid conditions. And I'm kind of guessing the 2% that didn't weren't that healthy to begin with. Okay? So what kind of things strengthen your immune system? Good stress. Healthy lifestyle. All the stuff that requires, you need exercise, you need breathing, you need connection. We know the germ theory has become dogma because it neglects many of the other factors that play a part in host germ environment complex that lead to infections. Susceptibility, genetic constitution, behavior, socioeconomic determinants. Now, why don't you hear this on the TV? Why don't you hear this from the talking heads? That, hey, look, it's not just don't worry about a virus. We got to look at your socioeconomic status. We got to look at your biology, your genetic constitution, your behavior. Man, if you're staying up drinking and partying all night and you're eating McDonald's, your immune system is weak. So that's not good for you. We have to strengthen your immune system. Your immune system has allowed you to thrive on here. Have you heard that at all? Well, let me tell you, you're divinely inspired. You're built by God. You're designed to be here. And you're all winners. You're the sperm that made it in there. Yeah, baby. Yeehaw. You didn't know. Now think of this. These are two things that hold a massive amount of genetic information. The sperm and the egg. On day one, when that baby implants, it has a massive reaction. Now, we can do this. We know the stages of this, but how it works, we don't know. There's a life force entity that's beyond the science that we know. This is why I like dark field microscopy. Dark field microscopy live blood cell analysis is illegal in America, okay, because it shows certain things. You can't use it for diagnostics, okay, but to look at it and to look at things beyond science. I mean, within 4 days, it starts to look like a mulberry. Within day 15, think of this, this is like 2 weeks. Right there, that's the primitive streak. That's the start of the nervous system. Nervous system, first system of the body to form. And in fact, all the organs grow off of that nervous system like fruit to a tree. This is how you started. This is how you started. I want you to look at this and have goosebumps because you're designed to live here. Living in fear is foolish. It's foolish. By God, look at this, 20 days. What is that? Less than 3 weeks. You're starting to see the heart work. You're seeing the eyes start to form. And this is all in that little interaction. And you all went through this. You're designed to live on this planet. You're human beings. Day 35, 1 month. Oh my God. This is a viable human being. You all started this way. And we're designed to live in a community. You're designed to live here. 1,000 generations of your family have survived to get you here. You are at the top friggin' level. Okay, if anybody tells you anything different, they're assholes. Okay? They are. Okay, now, and that's cool. They can come to me. I'll have a firm discussion with them, and I'll convince them. They'll be okay. Okay, you have an automatic nervous system, and this is how you thrive. One part keeps you alive under stress. The other part regenerates tissue. I actually had a patient today that was interesting. And she was low functioning parasympathetic. And she says, well, does that mean the sympathetic is high functioning or anything else? And I said, no, it's kind of like a gas and a brake. You know, you're not going to put both on. You're not going to go anywhere. So, you know, one's on, the other's off. One's on, the other's off. I thought that was a good explanation, but it didn't fly. Now, I do a lot of explanations that don't work, so it's okay. But when you're in a stress state, physical, chemical, or emotional stress, that fight or flight kicks up. The blood becomes thick. Your protein production is totally different. So this goes on genetics. When you look at genetics, hereditary is a biological process where parents pass certain genes onto their offspring. Okay, so now anyone that has survived in this time, or that, do you know anyone that was alive back in 2009? Yeah? Okay, good. You guys survived the H1N1 pandemic. So that means you were exposed and you lived. Yeah, okay. I was alive in a bunch of the epidemics. Okay, the swine flu. Okay, I was alive in all of these things. Okay, and I survived. Hair, skin color, everything. But here's the misunderstanding. See, when we look at genetics, these are misconceptions. Every biologic organism can be predicted from its genes. That's totally not true. Single genes a code for an anatomical or behavior feature. Totally not true. Genes are the blueprint of an organism's form and behavior. Totally not true. Genes are uninterrupted sequences of DNA that code for only a single protein. Totally not true. See, people have a view of genes that is completely off. Now, they started the Human Genome Project in 1984, and this was brilliant because they thought the human body produces around 100,000 proteins. It's probably one gene per protein. We don't know. Okay, let's just try it. Okay, and if we can identify that one gene and they can build a drug to knock out that gene, then they can prevent diseases before they even happen. Heck, they can look for the gene for shopping and prevent your wife from shopping too much. You think I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. There is a shopping gene. There's a gambling gene. There's an obesity gene. There's a this gene. There's a that gene. And none of those things are actually accurate. Okay? So they had an idea that 100,000 proteins, 100,000 genes, okay, we got a little bit more than a fruit fly, about the same amount as a mouse. So that kind of screwed it up. So in order to produce all these proteins from a small amount of genes, there has to be control above the gene, And so that happened in 2000. Randy Jertle and Robert Waterland, they got these special mice that the mice were bred for obesity and cancer and short lives. They were bred to do that so they could do a lot of experiments, because you don't want to get a healthy mouse and make them sick. It's a lot better to breed the sick mice, and then you can just do experiments right away. Okay, does that make sense? Kind of like our population. Okay, so what they did is they gave the pregnant mice moms supplements. I know, who'd have thunk it? Okay, and they found onions, garlic, beets, food supplements have a certain methyl donor on the group that actually had the offspring of these sick mice healthy. And they didn't exhibit any of the characteristics. So a different nutrient, a different stress level caused the mice to produce totally different. So when you're looking at genes, some genes can actually produce cancer. Some genes can eliminate cancer. But it's up to you to express those genes. It has to do with physical, chemical, and emotional stress. I mean, we look at Manolis Kellis. He's talking about an epigenome sequence. So if we know there's 20,000 genes, and it took years to find those, there's over 150 billion combinations or things that can affect that gene expression. Think of that. If you think a happy thought, you're going to express a gene. You think a sad one, you're going to express it. The Royal Lecture, mismanaged and disorganized epigenomes led to disease. Have you ever heard of someone dying of anaphylactic shock from an allergy? You ever heard of it? You don't have to know the person. You ever heard of it? Okay. What is that? That's an abnormal recognition of a foreign protein. So that's the Genome Project gone wrong. Okay, it means that they've been sensitized to recognize a peanut protein or something else as dangerous, and it actually causes their own death. Now, what do we have? When I was born in 1960, yes, people were still living back then. Okay, 97% of all kids were healthy. Now it's 46% of kids are healthy. Is that a genetic or genetic expression? What type of influences do we have? We know glyphosates can destroy the gut and cause mineral deficiencies. We know that Bt toxin, which is a corn that has a pesticide in its pollen. No, nothing's going to go wrong with that, Sarah. Don't worry about it. We're going to feed it to the cows and make a shitload of money. Okay, well, it survived the cow's digestion, it survived the cooking process, it survived the mom's digestion, and now it's inside of kids in breast milk. Okay, and this is something that destroys the gut, but it was generally recognized as safe. We know environmental triggers in vaccines can report autoimmune conditions. We know other environmental triggers are located in autism. This is something you haven't heard for a few years or a few months. The autism epidemic, 1 in 28 boys, but they're looking at 8-year-olds, even though it comes on at 3, so you might think they're about 4 or 5 years behind the thing, and you'd be right. Okay, by 2025, it's supposed to be 1 in 2. Cancer is not genetic either. Cancer has a number of different causes. Viral infections, hypoxia, inflammation, environmental toxins, radiation, carcinogens. Epigenetic control. Now, this is from the Journal of Metabolism and Clinical and Experimental. They say that every drug out there, and we're talking cholesterol, antidepressants, diuretics, beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, tamoxifen, methotrexate, Jesus, chemotherapy drug, anti-inflammatories, contraceptives, antibiotics. I mean, this is a huge list of drugs. All of these cause alterations in genetic expression. All of them. So wait a second. So are you defective? You're not designed to live here, or the governing authorities that are giving you toxic chemicals to alter your physiology to reduce a symptom? Is that the problem? It's not you. You don't got to be afraid of everybody to wear a stupid mask. You're designed to live here. You have been taught a lie. If you look at this, heart disease, cancer, all of these are expressions. They're not diseases. They're stuff that you had to earn. When you look at the Mayo Clinic, the leading cause of thyroid problems is Hashimoto's. What's the cause of Hashimoto's? We don't know. What's the cause of thyroid? It's Hashimoto's. What causes it? We don't know. Honest to God. And you're trusting these people with advice to social distance? Yeah, right. Okay. Sympathetic, parasympathetic. This is how you view your world. You're looking at a low-functioning or sympathetic dominant person. Now, that means fight or flight. If I go in and stand on anyone's foot in here, what's going to happen? I know, you'll punch me, you'll punch me. Okay, but no, your heart rate's going to go up, thyroid's going to go down, adrenal glands are going to go up. All of this is a normal response. Does this person have high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and thyroid, or are they in a stress state? I got it. High blood pressure is idiopathic. What's the idiopathic mean? Unknown. And so I asked doctor friends, and I said, Doc, have you ever checked to see if they're in a sympathetic? Have you ever checked autonomic function? See if they're low functioning parasympathetic or sympathetic to find out if there's a reason or a source for the high blood pressure? Okay, I know. You're giggling because you know. No one's going to say, yeah. No, one of the doctors I spoke to, he says, well, we know the cause. And really, what is it? It's idiopathic. Dude, weed's not legal in New York. How can you be saying stupid stuff like this? Okay, numb hands, anxiety, fatigue, high blood pressure. Is she in a stress state or a stress state? Okay, so you're not going to treat her with antidepressants that have a suicide and suicidal thought warning. You're not going to give her a blood pressure drug that increases her risk of stroke. That's ridiculous. I love this one. The basic principles of treatment stated by Hippocrates is first, do no harm. Stories of medical remedies causing more harm than good have been recorded from time immemorial. It would be impossible to provide benefits of modern medicine if reasonable steps in diagnosis and treatment were withheld because of possible risks. Yes, it's impossible to give you safe therapies. Okay, so we have physical, chemical, and emotional stress. That's it. And you were designed to thrive in this. This is how 1,000 generations before you. What is physical stress? You got to pick the water up. You got to mow the yard. You got to grow the vegetables. You got to pick up your grandkids. You got to move. This means you got to move every day. This is how you're genetically designed. Emotion. You need connection with people. We have people, honest to God, that come in and say, man, I'm seeing people without masks. I feel good. And I said, look, you honest to God, you don't need to come in and get adjusted. Just come in and sit down, get a cup of water, go back in the exercise area. Just hang out, honest to God. Because, this one gal, really, really sweet. She's an office worker, works at home. And she's going, I used to think it was fun, but she misses her friends. She's got chronic anxiety now. She's missing the coffee, where you get together. Forget the kids. Literally forget the kids because they're being forgotten. How would you like to, just anybody, think of your fondest memory of school. Okay, was it at home on the computer? Or was it at recess? Or sporting events? Or the play? I remember a play in 4th grade. We're doing some witches thing and, So this, autonomic dysfunction, regardless of etiology, it does not matter the cause of the disease, that all diseases result from an autonomic adaptation or dysfunction. How about we live within our genetic potential, which is what you're designed to live to 120 years. You're divinely inspired. We know if you take a blood pressure drug, your risk of stroke increases. You're in as much trouble by the time you're on 3 medications that achieve excellent control. Why? Because the doctor's smarter than you. You've been fed that lie, that the doctor can gauge your blood pressure and give you a drug to lower your blood pressure and you're healthier. Has anybody ever seen that study? Because it doesn't exist. People with a bunch of drugs live healthier. Statins, this cholesterol-lowering drugs cause hardening of the arteries and heart failure. That's ridiculous. Why are we giving it to people? Statin causes decreased heart function, which is not a problem for Klingons. But no, they have 2 hearts if you're, okay. Think of this. Okay, here's a patient, musician. Neck pain, headaches, fatigue, digestion problems. Digestion problems when you're in a chronic stress state, guess what? It's called constipation, bloating, or reflux. That's what they got. If you got that, you're in a stress state. So now he's got a reverse curve in his neck. So what's your philosophy, doctor? He's got elevations in blood pressure. He's got a physical trauma that's over 10 years old. Okay, what are you going to do? You're going to give him an Advil, Motrin, a leave that'll destroy his joint cartilage? Are you going to get him fearful and inject him with a flu shot that at best is 40% effective? At worst, it has thimerosal and cancer-causing agents, because since 2013, the flu shots have been made with cancer-causing agents, neoplastic cell growth medium. Okay, and you're going to inject this into him? Where is this? How did you teach this beautiful being that's designed to live here those lies that you got to be afraid of everybody, afraid of your environment, and this is how you're going to survive? Mind-blowing. This is how we get back our genetic expression. You live within your parameters. That means we have to clean up our environment. Okay, if man makes it, you don't eat it. And you better start growing it, because it ain't going to be in the store. Okay, you can't get more clear than that. If you're aware of this, go to Home Depot or IKEA, and you're going to see empty shelves. Transfer that thought pattern over to the grocery store. It's not going to be there. Go to the farmers markets, hook it up. You know, say, hey, buddy, I'm going to come out to your farm. I'll make it really easy on you. I'll take the scraps that you can't sell. Broccoli leaves. I'm telling you, if you haven't had broccoli leaves, they're better than the friggin' flowers. We got to clean up healthcare. This means you fire your doctor. If he's going to give you a toxic chemical for a symptom, he is worthless. Okay, environment. If we're living in harmony with our environment, we survive. We live in disharmony with our environment, we die. That's why people are allowed to take over now, because we're in a disharmonic relationship with our world. Politics run by the consent of the governed. We have to take our world back. So if you have a policeman that's arresting you for not being social distance or wearing gloves or wearing a mask, ask him, where's the study? Where's the law? Where's show me the legal right that causes you to interrupt our Bill of Privileges, a Bill of Rights, in order that we can congregate and have freedom of speech. And try and find Del Bigtree on Facebook and YouTube. Okay? Do not comply. Know that if you live on this planet, you were designed to live here. There's nothing foreign for you except the psychotic interventions. We do not recognize the authority of the state or federal government of the United States to mandate general force vaccinations or any kind of medical procedure. You should have bodily autonomy. Join Medical Freedom Pact or anyone else. You have to do something. Okay, and I got to tell you, Del Bigtree went down. A lot of people are going down. Okay, why I'm still up there, God knows. But we're going to have live stream on the drjohnbergman.com. If this thing goes down, we're going to have live stream maybe on Extreme Health Academy. Hopefully, we can work out the technical aspects. So this way, if we can't do it on Facebook and we can't do it on YouTube, we're going to have it somewhere. The problem is we can't capture everyone's email. Just start looking for it. Because if we're not here on a Tuesday, I'm either dead or we're on something else. And when you go to BitChute, John Bergman, but being dead is a possibility. We're going to take back our life, but please start asking correct questions. If you see somebody with the mask, say, what assurances do you need to take that off? Do you need a government authority? Do you need to have somebody explain immune system function to you? I had a 24-year-old gal that's running our video stuff in Mexico. And I said, do you know how many people in your age category have died that are healthy? She looks at me and millions. Okay, how about none? None. No healthy individual 24-year-old kids that have died from this. Okay, and when you look at this, children, you're talking 105 kids this year have died from the flu, 13 supposedly have died from COVID, and those kids had secondary problems. This is ignorant. Realize that you're designed to live here. Genetic expression. This is where you're designed to thrive. Okay, next week we're going to talk about more brain function, but I thought it was really, really important to get this done. Thank you very much.